My name is Matt Schwarzman, and I'm glad to see you all here. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. I am Lisa Demour. Really happy to be here today. I'm on the core team of the Black and Blue Story Project. I live in New Orleans, and I am a playwright.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Susan Hudson, Black and Blue team member. Excited to be on this project, and thank you all for being here.
We also want to mention Ron Bechet and Ariadne Blade, both of whom had commitments that they had to follow elsewhere, but we promised them we would do as good a job we could as we can without them.
And I'd also love to just thank all of the wonderful support that we have for this project, including South Arts and Alternate Roots, the NEA, the Jazz and Heritage Festival, the Fertel Foundation, and our incredible partners at Yaya. It's just been so amazing getting to know you all. So thank you.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. And just excited to have everyone here. And a special thanks to all of our special guests. You each embody an essential community resource that made today possible. And I'm just so grateful to have you all here. Thank you. Chief Knight believes in building community. And he is a multidisciplinary artist, educator, activist, and just all around great guy. And I have had the pleasure of knowing and working with over the past year as a part of our campaign. If we get a chance, I want to show you the amazing graphic he did that helped us in my campaign to become the next sheriff of Orleans Parish. But I met Keith before that. He had come on a book tour, and it was when I was a police monitor, and I saw him at Xavier, and I saw him in our community just telling a good story about what happens to us during police encounters, so on and so forth. So just he's won awards because of that, and in the United States and in Europe. And I'm proud to call him my friend. Ladies and gentlemen, Keith Knight.
Hey, everybody. You heard the name a couple of times. Keith Knight, gentleman cartoonist. I'm happy to be your host today. It's my job to keep things moving, throw in an observation or two, and make sure you're having a good time. I got to know Yvonne a little through my visits to New Orleans through Matt and Ron. And what I realized that made her special was history and community and activism and inspiration all in one, and just a larger than life figure, and just an amazing inspiration for years to come. And heck, if you can carry a play, I think you've done a lot with the community. So today we are here to honor her life through storytelling, and what we're going to do is go through the agenda right now. So Matt's going to toss it up there. We're going to introduce the Black and Blue Story Project, preview Black and Blue Comics #1, have some special guests, and the pitch. All right, so I'm going to hand the mic back over to Susan, and she's going to talk about the Black and Blue Project.
Okay, thank you. I became a part of this group back in 2017 when they needed some help researching a play about the NOPD, and I was the independent police monitor. And I got to know Chief Yvonne Bechet as someone who was a pioneer, who I'm the first African-American woman to be sheriff in the state of Louisiana. She was the first African-American woman to be a deputy chief at the NOPD. So I stepped on her shoulders. She led the way for me. But her grace, her knowledge, her caring, her heart, just an amazing woman. And anybody who met her, you felt like you were related to her. And I always just said, Chief, when are you going to have your book? And we lost her way too soon before she had a chance to really tell her story. And so, all of us are convinced that her story really needed to be told. And so not only her story, but the stories of millions of African Americans who every day in their own ways are committed to the safety and the human rights of their communities and against the overwhelming forces and odds, really, and the forces of racism and white supremacy. So just kudos to Chief. She led the way for all of us. And I'm proud to have anything to do with her legacy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Susan. Again, I'm Lisa Demour, and I became a part of this group in 2016 when they needed some help figuring out how to commission a playwright, which is something I've experienced and know how to do. And I got to know Chief Bechet, Yvonne Bechet, during that process, during the research process. We did some of the meetings at her home, and I really got to know her as someone who, like so many of the matriarchs I have known in New Orleans, to be a woman who fearlessly walked into rooms that were new to her, where she was not always wanted, and just took charge. Took charge. And in addition, I feel like Yvonne Bechet was practically the definition of care. And that has really led us in our process at Black and Blue. Our mission is to engage the public in creating healthier and more equitable approaches to policing and public safety through storytelling in all its forms. And our main activity right now is commissioning new works, such as the play Black and Blue and the graphic novel that's currently titled Black and Blue Comics. And we believe that through storytelling, we can connect deeply as human beings as we work towards liberation and joy in all of its forms. So thank you so much for coming. I'll pass it back to Keith.
Okay, so drum roll, please. Now is the time you've all been waiting for. And this is when we get the sneak preview. Let's meet the team. So what we have here is Steve Prince, the lead illustrator, director of engagement and artist in residence at William & Mary College, an internationally award-winning artist and educator. Angelique Roche, lead writer, attorney, journalist, producer, and co-author of the forthcoming book, My Superhero is Black by Marvel, Simon & Schuster. Blair Aguillard, a Yaya apprentice, Morgan Prevost, I'm sorry, I'm messing that up. Yaya apprentice, and Keith Singleton, Yaya apprentice.
Angelique, would you take the lead?
Absolutely. Are we going to do it without the slideshow? Matt? You're on mute, Matt.
I wanted people to see your face before we start.
Hi.
Okay.
I'm Angelique Roche. I'm a writer, journalist. Keith just did it absolutely wonderfully. But I love storytelling. I'm originally from Louisiana. My father's from New Orleans. He's from the West Bank. And I used to actually work for Mary Landrieu. So I spent a lot of time in Louisiana and before I went into entertainment. And, you know, my parents are still in Port Allen, Louisiana. But, you know, this project is absolutely near and dear to my heart. So I'm so excited to be involved. But hi.
Okay, back to the screen. There you go.
Awesome. So I am really thrilled because obviously all of you know that storytelling comes in different shapes and facets and mediums, and comic books have traditionally been a medium that bridges together this idea of story with visuals and can really get across a lot of ideas for social change, but also a lot of higher concept items that people don't realize. So in the past, comics have been used to talk about apartheid, segregation, civil rights. They have been used to talk about policing. They've been used to talk about womenism and feminism and all these things. And so now this particular work that we're doing is looking for, particularly in issue 1, because there are 4 issues. Each issue is about 30 pages long, which will allow us to take it through different parts of the heroic journey, right? One, you know, looking at this idea of this fire for change is where we're starting in issue 1. So while this is one story, we're going to be following our 3 teen protagonists, Rowan, Marcus, and Blake, who all come from different backgrounds, but all live in the same area in New Orleans. And it's going to be going through this idea of what is the conflict? What is the danger? What is the change they try to put forward? And then how do they evolve into being the change makers, the change they want to see, but also how they come together as a team. And so the teens, while they may know of each other at the beginning of the book, really come together through this first issue. And we go through each of their quote unquote origin stories for this particular conflict. And so the teens will learn through different problems that they have to solve, what it means to see something and then take a step forward into progressive, safer streets for them and for their community, even though the rest of the community may not see why it's important.
Thanks, Angelique. Steve, would you introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. Yes, again, my name is Steve Prince, and thank you, Keith, for the wonderful introduction again. And I'm the Director of Engagement, Distinguished Artist in Resident at the Muscarella Museum at William and Mary. But I was born and raised in New Orleans, and I went to Xavier University of Louisiana for undergrad. And there I concentrated in fine arts, and then I went on to Michigan State and got my MFA in printmaking and sculpture. But since then, I have been primarily an artist, but also an educator. And I've taught on various different levels, from middle school to high school to community college to four-year public and four-year private institutions across the nation. And I'm just so honored to be a part of this project, and for multiple reasons. And so I think that it's appropriate I just share a little story with you and why this project is important to me. In 2006, I did an artist in residency in Santa Catarina, Brazil. And while I was doing my residency, I
think it's your sound, Steve. I'm not sure.
I think it's me. Do you hear the same feedback?
I think
do.
we have a couple people off mute, Matt.
Lena.
Thank you, everybody. Go ahead, Steve.
Okay. Yes. While I was in residency in 2006 in Santa Catarina, Brazil, I was there for about 3 weeks. And the second week that I was there, I was in this little town called Blumenau. And I got to this woman's house, and she had a little girl, was around about 7 or 8 years old. And one of the things, whenever I get around little kids, I turn to a little kid, and I started making faces at her, and we started making fun back and forth. The little girl was laughing and giggling there, all the little faces I was making. And the mother said to the little girl, she said, "Could you leave the gentleman alone and stop bothering him?" And I turned to the mother and I said, no, she's not bothering me. I said, we're just having a good old time. We're having fun, making funny faces. Then I pulled out my sketchbook and I made a little drawing of the little girl with a single line. And I gave it to her, and the little girl's amazement in her face, the joy that she expressed, and she just lit up, and she just got so happy she got this image. She ran off into the back, and she came back with her own drawing pad, and she told me to sit, and she made a drawing of me. And I got all poised and they're ready for the little girl to make the drawing of me. The mom said to the little girl a second time, "Could you leave the gentleman alone and stop bothering him?" And I said, no, she's not bothering me. I said, we're doing portraits of each other now. So the little girl made a drawing. She gave me the drawing, and I gave her the same level of excitement that she gave me. And then the little girl, I became her best friend. So she ran in the back room. She came out and she had a little doll set. And so we began to play. The mom said to the girl a third time, "Could you please stop bothering the gentleman?" At the third time, something clicked in my head. I didn't know what was wrong, but I basically said, I need to divest from this little girl. And I did. And then a little while later, they took me away. They took me to the hotel where I was going to stay. So for the next week, I basically taught a workshop. And it was a wonderful, beautiful time. I was teaching 2 workshops a day. The last day of my time in Santa Catarina, and particularly in that town called Blumenau, the woman took me out to dinner. And she sat directly across from me as I'm looking across at you on these screens. And she said to me, "Steve, I want to apologize to you." And I said, "Apologize to me for what?" She said, "When you came into my home, I was afraid of you being around my little girl. And my eyes lit up. And if I don't know if anybody ever had anybody tell you anything like that, my head literally started spinning because I think the blood just ran from it. I just got dizzy. And I started running my brain through and I said, well, how was I interacting with the girl? And I said, if I did something to offend you in my interaction with this little girl, please let me know, because I did not mean your child any harm. She said, no, you did nothing wrong. She said, it's the images that I have of you as a Black man that I saw in videos and movies that scared me. That rocked me to my core, that the woman had the bravery to tell me this and to apologize to me for something that I had no clue of, but something that got exported from America around the world. And that is the image that was of me. So to be involved in a project like this, to be an artist, to be able to have control of our images, to be able to make these stories, to be able to pull upon these narratives, to be able to challenge people in the way in which we're going to challenge them. Yes, this excites me to be involved in this project, because we have to put that narrative out there that counters that narrative, but we also need to put a narrative out there that's going to challenge people to see and to look deeper beyond the surface of the lies that have been espoused throughout this entire planet. So as a visual artist, I'm excited to be a part of this project. I'm excited to be working with these young teens as part of Yaya. I'm excited to be working with Angelique Roche as the lead writer. And I just know that the work that we're going to do together in making this project is going to leave a mark upon generations to come, because other people are going to look back at this project and see what we've done, to see the rigor that we have gone through in terms of the creating of the characters, the stories, the images, but all these things in which we pulling together these components, the power of having these images and working in t-shirts or working in figurines or working in other ways in which we can generate commerce out of this project that can continue to do work back into the community. That's the power that I believe that we harness. And so I'm excited, I'm overjoyed to be a part of this project, and I just can't wait to see where we're going to take it over the next several months together.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you. Thank you. I think we should keep going. You came here for a preview, so let's give you a preview. And it's hard to follow Steve, I have to say, but I'm going to, Angelique, can you go a little deeper with the story with Keith Singleton, who has just joined us. Welcome, Keith, rather.
Hi, Keith. Yeah, absolutely. And Steve, thank you. That is something so important. I just want to reiterate, as we talk about the world building, that is something that's very key into having the voices behind this story and the ideas behind the story come from these incredible young apprentices, because we're just channeling it, right? We're just taking it and going, all right, how do we put it together? But a lot of these great ideas for the world building came here. So Keith, I can kind of you come off mute, please kind of jump in. But where we kind of start is, what the world is and how we got here. So the year is 2078. And Keith, if you kind of want to help and just talk about what we've decided as a group on what is the pathway to where we meet our characters, because it's very important to how the characters, who the characters are.
Yeah. So we was talking about in our group of how our characters meet, and I gave this idea of this so my character Marcus, right? He's kind of like this think of it as as this this brutal Batman type character, kind of. Oh, he's always angry, always frustrated and rage and everything. So Morgan's character Rowan, she sees Marcus holding up her person, which is a bad guy basically. He holds him up by a building, about to drop him, and then when he does that, Rowan saves the person and confronts Marcus, and she thinks that he's this bad guy. So, but also we also been talking about other ways to how characters can confront each other. And also last Saturday, me and Matt, we went to this park. We went to this like park and we took pictures of the places of where our characters are gonna meet or take place at. And we took like all sorts of pictures to get the idea of what the setting is gonna be. And I also met with the Mardi Gras Indians, and they talked about they shared their stories, of what each Indian does, like the spy boy, the big chief, and everything. It was a good experience in interviewing them.
Here, just to stick my nose in for a second, you can see how what Keith's talking about is being translated into the story. Angelique?
So one of the things that really is key and core to our hero's journey is how do they get there? How do we set up this world, right? So if you've been receiving all your emails from Matt, this world is in 2078. We are after an environmental disaster. We have 3 teens. We have Rowan, Marcus, and Blake. And what we've done as we've kind of blended together these concepts, both the teens and then talking to Steve, is this idea of how do we infuse what really is New Orleans? How do we really infuse these ideas of art and culture, but also what is what is strong in the community? And so each character, Rowan, Marcus, and Blake, represent 3 different things. One, some version of the arts. So dancer, musician, painter, but also they each have their own intrinsic core personality superpower, whether it's empathy, judgment, as you just heard Keith talking about Marcus being that character who's a little bit on the justice side, but what does justice mean? And Blake, who, is an artist and has visions. And this also corresponds with the Mardi Gras Indians' idea of spy girl, wild man, and flag boy as they come together. But each of them, when you meet them, are living out their separate lives, and they each have to have a reason. Rowan's reason is human trafficking. Marcus's reason is justice, and when justice is not actually administered in the right way, dealing with his death and resurrection. And then Blake, being an artist, gets in the middle of the community not truly wanting that art because they don't value it in the same way in this new speculative fiction after the environmental disaster. And what does that mean in the language of symbols in the entire story? And so each one of them on their separate path in issue 1 will go through their moment, the beginning of their hero's journey, the thing that makes them go from, oh man, I wish things would change, to going, change has to happen. And during this journey, they will, by the end of issue 1, not just come together on a common cause of change, but also be introduced to a mentor character that we'll talk about. So
let me actually interrupt for a brief commercial word.
Yes.
I put into the chat box, everybody, the links to the auction and to the campaign. You have 2 different ways that you can donate, either just in a flat amount, or if you want to bid on the auction. We're about to close the auction in just a few minutes. We've met our goal, I'm happy to say, with the auction. We've just begun to meet our goal with the campaign. So thank you, Angelique, for tolerating that brief commercial word. And maybe you and Keith can talk a little bit about the chief.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I love the concept of having a mentor that brings folks together, right? A source of knowledge, a source for history. And what we kind of came together, and Keith, you could talk about this. The chief is a reluctant mentor in the beginning, which is why it was very important for us to build a community around her to explain why she would be reluctant. And there's a little bit more to the story, but Keith, if you want to kind of talk a little bit about what your thoughts were in making the chief reluctant and, you know, the design of Chief and how it came about.
But yeah, I actually like the idea of this too. It's like and I also like the character design too. It's not like none basic or none. It's actually like your own like your own creative thing of thinking about. And I like how it actually is inspired by an actual person. That too. Over, I mean, overall, I think it's a great idea, and I want to see how this comes into the story.
So it's perfect, and that's a perfect segue because Chief will be involved in all three of our heroes' story at some point. Based on our position in the community, she will have crossed their paths at some point that makes it, as a storyteller knows, you have to have it. It has to be reasonable that they would end up together with Chief by the end. But Chief's role being a former police officer, but also being the daughter of a Mardi Gras Indian chief, allows there to be an infusion of community and allows there to be a person who has knowledge of what does community involvement, what does empathy look like, what are the other possibilities of bringing together innovative ways of policing. And so while she is seen as a recluse at the beginning of our story, she will, by the end, be invested in these three unlikely young heroes, and also serve as a jumping point for them to be able to articulate what they want to see, even though they're still trying to figure out how they're going to do it in change in their communities.
Awesome. Steve, you started referring to it, but I think we could hear a little bit more. What's the vision here?
Absolutely. Our vision, of course, as far as some of the process that we've already done, so that everybody get a little bit of sense of background, beyond the design charrettes that we've been having in terms of just talking about from a conceptual framework of the story, building the characters, building the universe. Those are the critical conversations that we've been having over the past month and a half. Another thing we've been doing is building skills, where I've been working with the youth in terms of doing things with figure drawing, doing things with drawing in perspective, because we also know very keenly that not only are the characters of the story players, but the place and space is part of the story, and that the place and space being New Orleans, and all of New Orleans history and all of its ugliness and all of its beauty. We want to draw upon that. And so another key element in which we're drawing upon is the idea of the Sankofa. And for those of you who are not familiar with the Sankofa, it's a mythical bird that comes out of Ghana, Africa, that looks back while moving forward. And this idea that those who forget the past are doomed to repeat it. We understand that in looking back and understanding that history and where we've come from and the things that have taken place in terms of this landscape, it is so important for us to look back, to take that information, learn from it, but figure out ways in which we can do into the future. And so as we have the story, which is arcing towards the future, and we're imagining this new city, imagining what the terrain could look like. And then the youth are coming up with just some beautiful ideas about these, cities and so forth, living in like lily pads and things that are, what would be our modes of transportation? How will we move through the water? How can we draw upon the Mardi Gras Indian history? How can we draw upon jazz history? How can we, draw upon all these different little ingredients in a sense and pull them together to begin to speak through it? And so some of the vision that we have is not only is that, we knew that the 30 pages were not going to be enough to tell a story, that we had to break it up into other nuggets of information in terms of how do we get it across. But I think that the other part of the vision is that we need to think about the fact that we need to pay very close attention, which we have been in recording our meetings, and knowing that this is going to be valuable information for people for study to figure out, well, how did they make this book? What did they go through to get it done? And I think, again, another beautiful element is that I'm a big believer of pulling from what is in the storehouse. And that's why I love this whole auction concept, is because we're drawing from the artwork that we've created and we're using it as investment tools to feed back into this project to help it to grow. And so with that in
Sorry.
mind,
Yeah.
there's so many levels and layers of this project that we could begin to build off on, is that once these characters get made, they're going to become part of our vocabulary in the community because they came out of the community. You know, and what beautiful metaphor is it for to have the chief as this double chief, you know, chief with the Mardi Gras Indian, but the chief with the police department. So someone that kind of states at a kind of like a liminal space, you know, that operates in both of those worlds. And so with that kind of information, we're thinking about, you know, how does this get produced in other means of production, whether it be posters, whether it be prints, whether it be T-shirts, all these different things. And then these are means by which we can use the project to continue to more or less kind of create a perpetual motion within it that will feed back into it so that we can engage more youth, more adults in the future back in this project. So we're just become the first wave. And then there's another wave of thinkers, because when we do projects like this, what's very important in terms of the long range vision is that we can't just do the project and then put it out there and just stop and say that's what it is. No, it has to be sustained thinking, but it also has to be sustained doing that's connected to that thinking. And so that's part of the vision that we're building here with this project. And again, I can't tell you how excited I am. I hope you can read it online in terms of the excitement that I have for it. And comics was my first love as an artist. You know, I fell in love with Marvel Comics. And I can go down, I can geek out with you on all the list of characters that I was into. I can argue with you about the films and all that stuff that was going on, how I thought they did a good job or how I thought they didn't do a good job. But nonetheless, I think our vision is limitless, you know, and drawing from the words of one of my professors, which was John Scott, he said to us, you know, as students, he said that your imagination is your only limitation. And so with that being said, then the sky's the limit. Thank you.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you, creative team. That was amazing. Really, and I love the idea of it being just a jumping off point and so many different things to explore. Now we get a chance to go behind the scenes and meet some of the amazing people who make this all possible. Sharika Mahdi is the mentor to the three Yaya apprentices, and herself an amazing visual storyteller and creative. Al Grandois is an investigator, restorative justice facilitator, and Mardi Gras Indian consulting with the team on community self-defense. Henry Spradley, a civil engineer specializing in water management, is consulting with the team on flooding. Ruby Lerner and Carlton Turner, both former executive directors of a legendary organization in Atlanta called Alternate Routes, played pivotal roles in making personal connections for the project. Zeb Hollins gave searing performances as Night Smile and Officer Reynolds in both public productions of the play we commissioned about Yvonne called Black and Blue. Yvonne's daughter Donna gave the team invaluable advice and support from the beginning. Nikki Estes is a program officer from South Arts, the regional funding agency that was the very first to support this project. Meg Miles, executive director of Yaya, together with Tamika Junius and the rest of the Yaya staff, make sure the project is always on point administratively. So thank you from all of us to all of you. Invite one or two people to say something. I don't think anything else needs to be said. I think what we have here is an amazing project. The enthusiasm is there. I love the fact that it's folks giving back to the community, folks coming back who were once with Yaya, coming back to Yaya, the different levels from like water management to Mardi Gras Indians and to history into the future. I think this is an amazing project, and I'm just psyched to even be witness to it. And I hope that someone bid on my woke watch party, because it's going to be an amazing season. So I'd love to sit and watch and whisper sweet nothings into your ear as episodes play. But also, if you haven't seen the first two episodes of Atlanta, check it out. Speaking of just like amazing television. Anyway, Matt, thank you for making this happen. Thank you all for showing up and really coming together for this. And let's create, let's change the world, and let's make things happen. Thank you.
So thank you, Keith. Thank you for hosting this. I see people's faces, many of whom I know are not necessarily, none of these folks on this line suffer fools gladly, but something like this comes along and really brings special people together. I think it's really important. I do want to mention, if folks don't mind, I do want to go through kind of what the campaign rewards are, because the campaign rewards go on for another 5 weeks. And really, in a lot of ways, the point of this event was to inspire you to help us these next 5 weeks. Here we go. For $25, $25 to $100, we will send you a PDF of a collage, photo text collage, based on the sayings and photographs, archival photographs of Yvonne Bechet's life. Shortly after the play, back in 2018, we were able to, actually from the box office of the play and a major donor who's I'm very thankful for, Barbara Zarsky, my sister-in-law. We were able to hire Oliver Thomas, folks know him, and Lily Keeber, a local documentary filmmaker, to interview Yvonne for about 9 hours about her life. And that video record and the text transcription of that are now in the Louisiana Public Library, and they form really the major reference material for this comic book. So then with $100 and $200 donations, you will get either a page or a panel of the new comic book when it comes out. So you were really, this is what Steve was talking about, you're investing truly, as we are investing in the community, our time and effort, you're investing by buying art and doing it before the art even exists, based on your belief in the people involved and the mission that we're trying to accomplish. Steve, anything you want to say about these prints that folks should know?
Sure. The prints that we're going to have are going to be done in the screen print medium. So they all will be hand run, where we will have the images digitized and then burned into a screen for those who don't understand the process, whereas it works off of the process of fat and thin. So parts of the screen is clogged with material and parts of the screen is open, and we use ink and a squeegee and force it through. And so we're going to do a limited edition of the screen printed images of some of the pages, and then we will sign them, and they'll have you an opportunity to have some of the original works that comes directly from the comic.
And then for I gotta correct this. Sorry, everybody. For $500, you get a lino cut print from none other than Mr. Prince himself, called Fertile Home. Could you talk a minute, Steve, about Fertile Home?
Absolutely. This is a recent piece that I created as part of a series that I'm working on, this idea of that we are carriers of history. And if you look at this woman, it's a profile of her, and she has a pretty precarious hat atop her head. And if you look at it, it's like a palimpsest of homes, or they're stacked in jagged ways atop her head. And I thought about it from the standpoint, I was born and raised in New Orleans, but I've lived in Michigan, I lived in Delaware, I lived in Pennsylvania, I lived in Maryland. And so my home, like my sense of home, becomes an amalgamation of all those different spaces. And so this woman with the cornrows in her head, with this series of homes and the jagged ways in which is there and precariously stacked but balanced. You see a fertility figure that's over to the left side of the compositional space, but in behind her is a quilt pattern called The Flock of Birds. And if any of you read the book by Raymond Dobard and Jacqueline Tobin, Raymond Dobard is a Xavier University grad, and worked there for many years at Howard University. In that book, they postulate that the ways in which slaves and abolitionists worked together and created a secret code system that helped them to navigate the South to the North and navigate ways to freedom, hiding them in quilts. And so the quilt pattern behind them is called the flock of birds, which basically meant for them to take flight. And I put that inside the image as a symbol of that idea that we must continue to take flight within the midst of trauma and find a way to make a way out of no way. If you also notice, there's like a halo-like formation around the bottom of it. It bespeaks of a spirit, or the Holy Spirit, which is protecting her and protecting us through this journey. Fertile
Thank
home.
you, Steve. Thank you. You're the only thing that is matched by your talent is your generosity. And it's true, it's really true. You're very generous. You've been with us really since the beginning. So thank you. Thank you. I know you have to go. So thanks for being with us. Last thing, just we have reached our $1,000 goal with the Woke watch party with Keith. If anybody, I guess it's 2:47 now, so the auction has closed. We have, congratulations, Keith. My sister-in-law has once again stepped forward, and she has bought she has put in the winning bid for the watch party. And so, I have an in, and if anybody wants to participate, I will sell individual seats. That's how we're going to make it back. I do want to give the folks, the special guests, a chance, or anybody really, to speak who would like to speak. The floor is open just for these last few minutes. Questions, comments, anything? Meg?
Well, I just wanted to thank everybody for being here today and thank the Black and Blue team for including Yaya from the beginning of this project. And for those of you who don't know, over almost the last 35 years, Yaya has given young creative people the skills that they need to envision these new worlds that we're talking about in this book. And the kind of secret sauce of our work always has been intergenerational collaboration. So to have three incredible teens working alongside Angelique and Steve, and also I really just want to shout out Sharika Mahdi. Sharika is one of the first Yayas from our earliest days. She's a member of our board. She's an incredible art teacher locally, and also is working on some exciting projects with Disney and other folks. And so mentorship is really the heart of what we do. So being able to have a mentor directly from the Yaya community, and then these two out-of-town mentors, it just really gets at the heart of what we're trying to do, which is nurture the creative leaders who are going to envision a more just world for us. So thank you, everybody, for letting Yaya be part of this project.
Thanks, Meg.
Can I hop in, Matt?
Please.
Yeah. I'm Al, and I just want to make this comment. I thought it was really impressive and interesting that the chief is a woman, and it starts off as a female, and having been exposed and intertwined in the Mardi Gras culture, historically, the chiefs are just male. And even currently and moving forward, just the concept of chiefs just males. And so I see my chief hasn't expressed it directly, but I see him kind of struggling with that idea because he's up in age, and technically who would be up next to take his place would be his granddaughter, who has grown up in the culture. And his son isn't technically in the culture. He has a son, older, but he isn't in the culture, doesn't know anything about the Mardi Gras Indian. But here's his granddaughter, who is the little queen of the tribe. And so technically, but then there's this dilemma of, and he hasn't expressed it, but I can see him like the wheels spinning every now and then in thought. And So I thought that was pretty interesting and impressive, because I think that kind of pushes the envelope a little bit when it's out in the world. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Al, because I want to also shout you out because the information you're bringing to us is really looking at the traditions of community self-defense in the African diaspora. I mean, it's that broad. You've also brought in Haiti, where your family is originally from, and Black Panthers, and I think it's the key to really the effectiveness, the pungency. It's the word that comes to mind of the story that the team's creating.
Exactly.
Yeah,
You're welcome.
thank you. Other comments?
Matt, I'm going to make one last fundraising pitch for you, because I don't think it's been mentioned, which is that the artists and the creative team, including the 3 teens for Yaya, will retain the copyright to this project, which is such an innovative and incredible opportunity. So you don't get to see that very often. And so we are also teaching a generation of teens how to own their work and maintain ownership of their work and understand what that means moving forward. So I think that's a really beautiful part of this project.
Thank you, Meg. Thank you. Yeah. I learned that personally, from my standpoint, I learned that the hard way. It's just nothing, when you commission work, there's only one way to make it truly the artist's work. So, yeah, Donna, I see you here. Thank you so much for participating.
Do you mind if I say one quick thing?
I wish you would.
Okay. Y'all know my mom has passed away. She's gone on, but I know her well enough to say that she would be so thrilled, excited, and complete, and so honored to have this fabulous team working on this, that she would have this part in. Mom was such a champion of being, showing that fearlessness, showing that mentoring young people, especially bringing them up in the way that will help our world become a better place. That was who she was at her core. And she would be so excited, and I am so excited and so grateful to have you people. I mean, my God, Keith Knight, just this wonderful team, and your visions are just amazing. So I cannot wait to see everything that you guys put together, and I am so happy, and my entire family, I can tell you, is so happy for this project. It's wonderful. Thank y'all so much.
Thanks, Donna. Thank you. She's whispering in my ear. And you know what she's whispering though, Donna? I want a book. I want a book. That's yeah. Eventually we're gonna get to the book.
Everything.
Anybody else? Carlton, you introduced us to John Jennings. John Jennings got us Angelique Rocher. There's just nothing you've done a lot for me in the past, but this was a lot. Thank you very much.
Nothing but love, and just really excited to have any association with this work. And just want to say what's up to everybody out there.
Yeah, thank you. Zeb, are you at the screen? Okay.
Yes, I am.
There he is. There he is.
Yes, yes.
How are you doing? What does this all mean to you, being present at the creation?
I echo everything everyone said. It's exciting, it's fun, and look forward to bringing it to life.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Zeb. Zeb was, was great, and we appreciate your involvement ever since the beginning. All right, everybody. Ruby, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to say I put it in the chat too, how honored I am to be here today and be with several old friends and meet all these incredible people that have come together to make this project happen. And while everyone was talking, I just couldn't help but think about, what it will mean to the community in New Orleans, but the ramifications are way beyond New Orleans. And I love the thinking about how to find ways to actually for it to have really global impact, which I believe it has the capacity to do. So, I'm certainly happy to think about some of those things along with you, if you would like. And I think this is a really an amazing, transformative project. And I think having people envision the future, if you cannot see a different future, you can't build it. And so that is that's absolutely critical to for all of us. And so thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Ruby. Yes, we will definitely follow up with you. We'll definitely do that. Thank you. Sharika, is that your hand up?
That's me. Yeah, I know I'm probably gonna be the last person, but I do want to say I enjoy being a mentor to the Yayas, and I know this is an adjustment for a lot of them, but they have really, really put a lot of effort. I'm so happy to see Keith. I'm always happy to see Morgan and Blair, but I also want to give a big shout out to Angelique just for coming in at the right time and just putting everything together, and her expertise and her experience with Marvel is just, I get so excited just knowing the caliber of people, Al and Steve and even Keith Knight. I mean, everyone, to be able to put this project together, it gives me a lot of joy. So I just wanted to give her a shout out in particular. And of course, Meg and Yaya for always thinking of me and giving me this opportunity to mentor Yaya. Thank you.
All right, y'all. Try to take all this energy with you through the rest of the day. Sun Ra is going to once again, if all this works, is going to take us out. So have a great afternoon. Thanks for coming.